in what they do, give them the leeway to do what they do. I understand y'all want to make Shreveport a much more market-friendly place, and as a homeowner, I want my market values to continue to grow, but I also want to be able to choose if I want a banana tree or a Chinese shrub in my front yard. I don't want you all to tell me that Japanese maple should not be in this climate. I want to make that decision to kill that tree or not. So please consider, before y'all add so many restrictions to homeowners, that we as homeowners have already invested in Shreveport, invested to live here, and we would like the ability to make some choices. We'd also like the ability to have more notice and more public announcement of meetings like this so that more homeowners can come and say their piece. I appreciate that as many professionals have come as they have, but I'd also like to see more people that are just citizens that are going to be affected be able to show up and say how they feel about it. And that's all I have. Thank y'all and have a great night.
That is all the slips I have. We're going to do this in an orderly manner from the public. We'll start on the right-hand side. Is anybody in the right-hand side? Is anybody on the right-hand side that would like to speak that is not turned in a comment card? No. Anybody in the first 3 rows? The next 3 rows. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak. Anybody else that has not had the opportunity to speak? Well, come on down. Huh? That's next. You know the routine. Name and address for the record.
Good evening. I actually didn't come to speak, but after hearing such healthy debate, I just want to make a couple of comments.
President Bradford? President, correct?
Yes. Well, Chairman and I were, just like you, Chairman Young.
Name and address for the record.
Okay. Willie Bradford, 3026 Independent Avenue, Shreveport, 71109. And let me express my appreciation to the board, Ms. Sweeney, for that. I thought it was a very enlightening presentation. The feedback from those in attendance I thought was excellent. It put on my mind a lot of things. I think we're close. But the thing that I want to mention as it relates to what I'm going to be considering. And I was hearing some things, and I thought about an old cliche, and I hope that it be taken into consideration as we move forward. If it ain't broke, why fix it? And I hope that was a part of the equation as we was reviewing, consolidating, and upgrading and modifying our document. If it ain't fixed. If it's not going to affect our status, why create something for our citizens that don't need to be presented to them as a hardship or as an inconvenience? And the other thing is that as a representative of a lot of our older inner city neighborhoods, my interest is how do we maintain. I think Mr. Williamson said something that was very important. How do we maintain that balance of residential and then making it appealing for new development, business or otherwise? That's important. And I, at the city council meeting on Tuesday, asked Mr. Sweeney if there was still available time for one-on-one conversation to present these type of concerns. And I think he said yeah. So I don't want to go into a whole lot, but I thank you for what you're doing, and I think you'll be prepared on the 18th to render some a recommendation through your vote to the bodies that'll be making the final decision. And that if you can consider those kind of things, that the first thing I want you to consider, if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broke, why introduce something that is unnecessary? And then how do we maintain some level of integrity to our neighborhoods that are old, that are outside of the preview of the big picture? And I'm talking about the MLK neighborhood, for instance. We cannot, should not limit or create some unreasonable expectations for those neighborhoods that does not fit in what I call the mainstream. And I think we can do that. I think it should be done in this way, in that we can have provisions, different, if you will, I'm gonna use the term scale, so that one size don't have to fit all. Okay. And then I think that the issue that Mr. Hubbard brought forward, if there are state or federal ordinances or codes that these entities are governed by, I would like to see some footnote placed to where that, if it is, and I think he made a very strong argument that footnote could be a footnote on that particular section or article to say refer to the state or the federal guidelines, and that will eliminate any confusion when it comes to who has jurisdiction over an authority over certain provisions of this new Unified Development Code. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bradford. Councilman Bradford. Anyone else? If not, that would conclude the public portion of it. Now we're going to the MPC board discussion time frame. Mr. Remedies.
Well, I'll be very brief. This was mainly for the public comments. I had several comments that I was asked to bring forth today. I agree with what Mr. Bradford said, that we have to be sure that we don't try to one size fits all for every community, because it may further push those communities back, and when they're held to the same standards or someone that could get a greater return on investment in another part of town. So we do need to be mindful of that. And we also need to be sure we look at what we have to offer developers as far as return on investment. We have a community that's stagnant population, and we can't maybe offer someone the return on their dollar. So that it's all about balance, a balance in what's good for the neighborhood, what's good the way our city looks, but also what is good for the return on investment for our developers. But there's a couple of things that I'll touch on. Several asked me to bring forward the clear cutting, prohibiting clear cutting. I believe that in certain cases, much like the neighborhood at Wallace Lake and Flournoy Lucas, that clear cutting, because we live in Louisiana, which much of our property has to be backfilled. When you backfill around trees, it just kills all the trees, creates further problems. So we need to be sure we address that clearly and not leave it up to one particular person. So what I'm personally concerned with is we create a czar, which would be one person that could sit and say yes or no to way more things than we should allow one person to. So that's what the purpose of the boards, where we have a majority vote and the citizens get their input on that. I've had concerns from mechanics that as written now, if you go to get your car worked on, someone has to work on your car in a fully enclosed building, which many of our employees, family members can't afford to take their vehicle to the dealership to get it worked on in a fully enclosed building. So we need to be mindful. I understand that we're trying to limit some people working on 50 cars in a parking lot on a corner somewhere, but maybe it's behind a screen fence or something like that. Fences, if I pay for a fence in my backyard, I want to look at the good side of the fence, but the way it's written now is if you pay for a privacy fence, your neighbors have to look at the good side of the fence, and you have to look at the back of it. Barbed wires, I have properties. I know several people have properties that are not in industrial zones, but barbed wire would be prohibited. Sometimes you need barbed wire to keep people away from your things and to protect your business when you're away, and I think that's a little overreaching for that. I agree with Councilman Fleury on the garage sizes. 3-car garages are very common. Houses, a lot of times, are very hard to sell after that. Limiting the way automotive dealerships display their vehicles, I think, is overreaching. The automotive dealerships provide lots of tax revenue for the city of Shreveport. Provide a safe and weatherproof storage area for bikes. I think that's a little overreaching. If I want to build a building, someone wants to ride a bike, I don't have a problem putting a bike rack, but I don't want to put into my business plan an indoor storage facility for bicycles. I think that's, again, is a little bit overreaching. Loading facilities must be screened. Even on the new Kroger development, as beautiful as that is, you can look right into the loading dock from the street. That's not screened, and I think that requiring that to be screened would be ridiculous. So those are just some of the things. I think that we have a really great start. Just have to refine some of these, the devil's in the details, so they say. And but I think we're really close, and our staff's working very hard to listen to what people say and try to put the balance together for what's best for the community long term and what's best to attract new development. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Bessie or Mr. Windsor, any comments?
Yes, I was saying I was not going to say anything, but I heard Chairman Bradford, he brought up the Martin Luther King area. And I've heard a lot here, but I'm here to represent because I know we started way back with the United Development Code in the Stony Hill area. Certainly, I would like to see some development going on in our area. And I'm talking about the Stony Hill area. Please, and I will talk with you about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bessie. Mr. Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for coming out and being a part of this opportunity to talk about the future of the city of Shreveport and Caddo Parish. Mr. Arsenault and several others are amongst the first ones to sit down on committees out at the fairgrounds and who knows where else to kind of get this whole ball of 2030 rolling. And I don't know if Jeff's still in the room, but we had a couple of 2 or 3 fights upstairs when we got to talking about the UDC and all of this kind of thing. But look where we are today. We're way down the road, and there are way more pluses than minuses. And I personally want to say thank you to those of you who represent the various industries that are here, and especially homeowners. And the young lady, Miss Williams, did I say that right? That just started working for Mr. Hubbard, Miss Ray. When you go home tonight, I would encourage you to call your neighbors and invite them to be at the next meeting that we'll be talking about on October the 18th, and share your thoughts and feelings. I want to compliment the chairman for starting off talking about it's a document that's a working document. And even though we may put a stamp of approval on it on the 18th, there's no reason, there's no locks on the doors to keep us from going back into it and making adjustments that are just common sense, Mr. Bradford, common sense adjustments that work for the majority of the people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. I'll keep my comments brief. You gonna start a timer? I'll make see if I obey it. This has been a long process, and just because the 18th comes up and the vote is taken doesn't mean that process stops. This is a living document that we will continue to work on for the long future. I took notes. I don't know if y'all noticed that, but I was taking notes as everybody spoke because I think that's important and it helps reinforce in my mind the comments that were said and about concerns and things that we liked about under the UDC. And Mr. Hubbard, one of your issues is close to my heart because I happen to live under an industry within an industry that is regulated by everybody but the dog catchers. And it is a constant problem for us when one steps on the other one and does not take that in consideration. So I will tell you that we will do our due diligence to make sure that we do not put you in danger of the PSC or the federal government. We will do our due diligence, I promise you. So, because we don't have the right to put you in jeopardy against the PSC or the federal government or the state of Louisiana laws. I lived under that before, where I had the fire marshal tell me one thing and the Department of Children and Family Services telling me something totally opposite. Both of them were threatening to close my business if I didn't obey it. I'll make sure we do not do that. I will do everything I can to make sure we don't do that. It is a tragedy that 50, 60, 70 years ago, nobody thought about not planting a 60-foot full-growth tree underneath the power line. So we end up now with the legacy of that problem. Had somebody had some forethought back then, we'd have never planted those trees there to begin with. And your life would be a lot easier and saving a lot of money and cost cutting and tree trimming issues. So I take that quandary that your industry put into heart. So, great comments. I appreciate the gentleman looking forward to the commercial development back into the, around the I-49 corridor and Pierre Avenue. I think that is critical. And all the redevelopment we're potentially looking at in that whole area, whether it's residential, mixed use, or in that case, commercial. And I think that is something we can look at as well. We definitely don't want to impede the ability of somebody having some long-term thought process about commercial development as well. So that is one area that we have talked about in the past that is starving for redevelopment of commercial, which is stifling, I believe, residential growth as well and redevelopment in that area. So that is something we're very keenly aware of. So we will take y'all's comments and we will study them. If you have additional comments, once again, submit those in writing so they can get responses and so everybody can see those answers. That way, if you have a question and you could look on there, you might see that somebody's already asked that question and giving you that answer. So that is critical. So given that, if you have any closing comments before we talk about the next meeting, once again, is, turn my page over, October 18th at 6 o'clock, back in this room. That is a Tuesday afternoon. And at that time, we will do a second public hearing, and hopefully we will have a vote on the document at that time. And we will be moving forward in some kind of direction, one way or the other. So that's what we're looking forward to. So, Mr. Sweeney, you have any comments you'd like to close with before we adjourn?
I just want to encourage you to return on the 18th. We will, as I said earlier, we will attempt to answer all the questions and concerns that you have brought up tonight, and so that we can respond to those in an effective way. And reach out to your neighbors, your fellow businessmen and women, and try to get them to come, because this is a historical thing that we're doing. I know to a lot of people it may be boring and dull, but the truth of the matter is, I feel like this is a legacy that we're going to create for our community, and it starts with the Unified Development Code. So again, I encourage you to come back on the 18th. We'll advertise it again, and we welcome you all to be there again.
If any of y'all would like to talk to us after we adjourn, we can stick around for a few minutes to talk. If nothing else from any of the board members.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Move that this meeting be adjourned.
Well, it's that we don't have a quorum to actually make a move, but I'll just adjourn the meeting. Thank y'all for coming.
I went to legal update.
Victoria says hi.
1496.
Get the email from Mr. Sweeney. He's supposed to post it.
That's the guy.
Yeah, he said, yeah, just put it there, okay?
Put the-
That's one video.